Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. We've talked quite a bit about the art world in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and those fellow travelers that he was always hanging out with, like Leon Black and Jess Staley and Glenn Dubin and the rest of them. Well, they're all involved in this shady, shiesty-ass art world. In fact, Glenn Dubin and Leon Black are both on the MoMA board. We also know from the FinCEN Files investigation that has broken in the last few months that there is a huge problem with money laundering in the art world. And we know that this world is used for money laundering, for hiding money, and for evading taxes. That has been established. So it's no shock that we have an article today about Jeffrey Epstein and his Picasso and his Cezanne. These people would buy these pieces of art, and then they would use these pieces of art to launder money. And it's still going on today. What, do you think is Jeffrey Epstein's gone, that this party's over? It's not. This whole entire art world, just like the world of modeling, needs to be completely and utterly audited. There is no oversight here whatsoever. How many of these rich people are buying $100 million paintings and then not paying taxes on them, using them as money laundering tools? How many of them are doing it? I would say a lot of them. And I think that if a real investigation was ever carried out, or if there was ever an audit of one of these places, I think it would be clear as day what these people are up to. But the problem is, none of these people have ever really faced serious scrutiny. Every time they get in trouble, it becomes some sort of fine or some sort of suspended penalty. Nobody in the financial world, and that's what we're talking about here, right? Normal people aren't buying Picassos. These people in the financial world have never, ever had any consequences for their behavior. Destroy the economy? Bah, no big deal. We'll just bail you out. Here's a few TARP programs for you. Give out a bunch of predatory loans? Bah, no big deal. Help embezzle money? Bah, just par for the course, folks. Involved with money laundering sex traffickers or murderers or cartels? Bah, no big deal. Let's look the other way. We're all getting rich here. And that needs to stop. And it needs to stop at the very top. Our lawmakers need to take this shit more seriously. They need to have strict and stringent rules when it comes to money laundering. And not just for normal folks, because when it comes to average people, like if you were engaged in a money laundering scheme, forget it. You'd be underneath the prison already. But there needs to be an elimination of these loopholes and these backroom deals and the way that this stuff is navigated. Because I'll tell you what, people are fed up. People are tired of rules for thee, but not for me. People are tired of that. And it's coming to a head, folks. It really is coming to a head. You see it around the world. People are fired up and they're demanding change. And these governments that don't start smelling what their people are cooking are going to be in serious jeopardy in the future. Because how long are normal, average people supposed to sit back and be abused, be treated horribly, be preyed upon by these so-called elites as they feed us into their never-ending war machine, build their fortunes on our back, and then when shit goes south and we have a pandemic like this, they tell the working class, screw you, you're on your own. Well, don't worry. All of our huge major companies got PPP loans, but you guys, screw you. Not even some unemployment. And that's the way these people conduct themselves. And it's not going to work out for them for much longer. We have the largest transfer of wealth in the history of mankind that has taken place during this pandemic. And I think the number, some crazy number, like 26.3% of all money ever printed in the history of the United States has been printed in like the last year. That means inflation is not far behind, folks. So we have to get our shit together, and we have to make sure that these people that we send to Washington, D.C. are not there to be part of the political ruling class. People need to go to D.C. to represent their constituents, point blank, period. The end. And until we can get to that point, until we can get to a point where there's none of this money coming in from out of state to influence senatorial races or Congress races or any of that jazz, then it's just going to be the same bullshit over and over and over again. These same people we're talking about who are manipulating the money, who are laundering money, who are hiding the money, these are the same people pumping that money into your state and local races. It needs to end. And these people that hide their money in their paintings and in their artwork and in these high-rise buildings, we're on to you folks now. All right? You're no longer going to be able to piss on our backs and tell us it's raining. That ship has sailed, the curtain has been pulled back, and the red pill that Morpheus was offering has most certainly been consumed. Our article today is from OK Magazine, and it's again by Chris Spargo, and he's all over these subpoenas down there in the Virgin Islands, folks, and there are some more to talk about. Some more of these art houses have now been dragged in to the subpoena party as well. The headline of this article, prosecutors demand Christie's and Sotheby's reveal details of Jeffrey Epstein's $139 million mysterious purchases of Picasso and Cezanne's. So Epstein, who apparently only has a $634 million fortune, spent 1/6 of that fortune on paintings, a Picasso and a Cezanne's. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that name right. I'm certainly not a cultured art world person, all right, folks? So if I'm pronouncing the name wrong for any of you arties out there, I do apologize. But you mean to tell me that this guy ponied up 1/6 of his wealth on a couple of paintings, huh? That does not make sense. That does not make sense at all. And where are these paintings? Are they sold? Are they going into the fund? They better be. Christie's and Sotheby's are being asked about Epstein's art habits. Christie's and Sotheby's have been ordered to turn over information prosecutors believe is essential to their case against Jeffrey Epstein and the pedophile's estate. Again, I think it's important that we comment when they say estate. That's Darren Indyke and Khan. So they're the executors of this estate. So we know that Denise George has pegged them as co-conspirators and participants in Epstein's crimes. She has certainly set them up as that. So it's interesting to me when we hear that they're going the case against Epstein and the pedophile's estate. You know, it's always interesting to see how things are going to play out for Indyke and Khan, considering what we know about them. So I think that with all of the subpoenas being sent out by Denise George, we're going to get a really gigantic picture of what was going on behind the scenes. And it would be nice to see the SDNY go this hard after the financial records, huh? What are they waiting for is the real question. OK has obtained court records that show the world's largest auction houses were served with a subpoena this week by prosecutors in the Virgin Islands. Those lawyers are still busy building their case 11 months after first filing charges against the deceased pedophile and his estate. So we know that Denise George has been doing really good work as far as trying to lift the veil of secrecy off of the Epstein enterprise. Now, it would be nice to see the SDNY do the same thing, but at least Denise George is firing off these subpoenas like she's at a shooting range and shooting a machine gun. Every time we turn around, someone else is catching a subpoena from Denise George. And again, I think that's awesome work. I think it's good stuff. With the cooperation from Preska, you would have to think that it would be the same thing going the other way as well. So if prosecutors at the SDNY want to request information from Denise George's investigation, I am sure that she would be on board with providing that to them as well. And I would think that SDNY has been in contact with Denise George already. You would think that, right? Do I know that for sure? I do not. But common sense would say that that's the case. These subpoenas, along with a third that has been issued to the Chicago Deferred Exchange Company, relate specifically to Epstein's art collection. Now remember, it's significant, like I was saying in my opening monologue. These guys love to use the art world as a vehicle. And if you watch the show Billions, I've mentioned this before, Bobby Axelrod had himself the same kind of scam. He would had fake art made and had that art on display while keeping the real art in his house. Or vice versa, one or the other. But either way, it was, they always have these scams within the art world. What do you think? Leon Black is just some kind of connoisseur of the arts? Give me a break. It's always about increasing their wealth. It's always about the means justifying the end with these people. And everybody else and everything else be damned. OK can further reveal that 3 specific pieces in Epstein's collection caught the attention of prosecutors. A painting by Pablo Picasso and 2 works from Paul Cézanne. Those 3 pieces stand out because Epstein bartered for them by trading in art he already owned while working out a deal that helped him avoid paying any taxes on his purchase. See what I'm saying? Look, I'm not completely locked into how the art world is maneuvering, but they are certainly using these pieces of art to launder money, to avoid paying taxes, and to hide their wealth. Very obvious what's going on. They also stand out because the value of all 3 combined is a staggering $139 million. Again, Jeffrey Epstein supposedly was worth $634 million. So he invests 1/6 of that wealth in 3 paintings? That doesn't sound like a move Jeffrey Epstein would be making if that's the case. So what it does is it shows me anyway, it says to me anyway, that he had much more money than that $634 million, and I am sure that there's a treasure trove of art somewhere, that there are tons of other assets that belong to Jeffrey Epstein. And the only way to ever get to the bottom of that and to find those funds so that they can be seized is for a complete and exhaustive forensic accountant investigation into his crimes. And I am talking every last dollar ever spent, every ATM swiped, every credit card purchased, and every single cash transaction that's possible to trace. All of it needs to be investigated because it leads not just to Jeffrey Epstein, but it leads to these enablers that were helping him and facilitating him for all of these years. Prosecutors are asking that Christie's and Sotheby's hand over request number 1, All documents reflecting or relating to inquiries, sales, bids, communications with or about Jeffrey E. Epstein, any Epstein agent, and or Epstein entity, redacted, or any redacted. So the first request, they want it all. They want the documents that have anything to do with sales or bids, communications, anything at all that has to do with their communications with Epstein as far as the sales or inquiries or anything like that in regards to art, all have to be turned over to Denise George and the United States Virgin Islands. Request number 2. All documents reflecting or relating to inquiries, sales, or bids for any artwork or other object by any of the individuals or entities in request number 1. This includes, but is not limited to, financial information related to the inquiries, sales, or bids. So they want the receipts, right? If anyone who was working as an agent for Jeffrey Epstein or Jeffrey Epstein himself purchased art from them, they want the paperwork, they want the documents, and they want the receipts. The question is, are they going to be able to provide them to the authorities? Request number 3. All documents reflecting or relating to the tax treatment or transfers to other entities for artwork or other objects by any of the individuals or entities in request number 1. And that's another thing. They trade this artwork like baseball cards, right? Like it's a baseball card market. And who the hell knows? Look, I don't have enough expertise in the area to even begin to try and explain it and break it down to the nuts and the bolts like we usually do here. But the art world is certainly being used as a vehicle for this dark money. It's 100% without a doubt happening. And I'm digging more into the art world with the limited amount of time I have free to me right now. And it's just another world of filth and another world of abuse, exploitation. It's like the modeling world, right? These young artists are just, man, it's crazy. Not so much as in physical abuse, but it's just crazy. The whole art world is just nuts. The way these young artists are pressured to sell to people like Epstein, and then how the art world is used as this vehicle for all of this money laundering. There's just a lot going on with the art world, folks. No doubt about it. And it's shady, it's seedy, and there needs to be more regulation. Request number 4. All documents relating to the redacted, or redacted. Well, that's helpful, huh? I won't even begin to try and guess what those redactions are. The third subpoena, issued to CDECRE, is similar to the above two, but with one additional question. That company will have to hand over all records pertaining to a 2018 tax audit that uncovered what looked to be a possible taxation scam that played out in these transactions. Hell yeah, there was a taxation scam. These people don't want to pay their taxes. None of these people do. And these will be the first ones yelling about, oh yeah, you should do the right thing, pay your taxes. All of these rich people have their money parked offshore, not paying a single dime. Meanwhile, you and I are getting completely and utterly hammered. Property tax, this tax, the next tax, the other tax, a new tax, your tax, my tax, his tax, their tax, tax. But Jeffrey Epstein? Nah, I'll buy me a nice Picasso, and I'll just stash my money there. OK was able to obtain the original Division of Taxation filing, which read in part, specifically, the division disallowed the application of trade-in credits on invoices issued by petitioner in 3 separate transactions. One involved a transaction between petitioner and an entity called Redacted. On the bill of sale to Redacted for the entity's purchase of a Chazani watercolor, petitioner reduced the sale price subject to sales tax by computing a trade-in credit for artwork that Redacted transferred to petitioner in connection with the exchange. So it's all a scheme and a plot and a scam, right? Oh, I'll trade you this piece of art in while I'm getting this one, and that'll take care of my taxes. Probably a loophole that the government allows anyway, because they're all in bed together, right? All of these people that are stealing and laundering, all of these rich people, at the same time, they're all donating to a bunch of political candidates. Just go take a look at anybody we talk about and look at the people they have donated to. Pete Buttigieg took a max donation from Glenn Dubin. We've went through all of the people who took money from Jeffrey Epstein. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know what other sort of scumbags and pieces of trash are funding our political system? The worst of the worst, folks. The second transaction was between Petitioner and Redacted, involving a different Chizani watercolor. On the bill of sale to Redacted for that entity's purchase of the watercolor, Petitioner reduced the sale price subject to sales tax by computing trade-in credit for artwork Redacted transferred to Petitioner in connection with the exchange. The third transaction was between Petitioner and Redacted for a Picasso painting. On the invoice issued to Redacted for that entity's purchase of the Picasso painting, Petitioner reduced the sales price subject to sales tax by computing a trade-in credit for artwork transferred by DSOCA to Petitioner in connection with the exchange. So it's all a scheme, it's all a plot, and if Jeffrey Epstein's doing this, you know that all of them are doing it. What do you think, they're just buying these Picassos and throwing them on their wall? Hell no. A means that justifies an end, like everything else. Everything to these people is a piece on the chessboard. A notice of determination later came back asserting sales and use tax in the amount of $3,622,597.52 for the periods ended May 31st, 2016 and November 30th, 2016, plus interest. That on top of the $8 million that has already been paid in New York taxes. It does remain unclear just what Epstein's role, if any, may have been in this. The news that he spent $139 million on these three works is quite substantial. Those who knew him have long noted, however, that he enjoyed putting up counterfeit art throughout his homes. Again, like I was saying, that's part of the scheme too. They'll buy the real art and then they'll put up a counterfeit, right? And that's how they do this shit. These people are scummy. They don't want to be accountable to anybody. They feel like they're above the law. The rules are not for them. The rules are not for them. Rules for thee, not for me. That is their motto. Picasso set a record during this same time period between 2015 and 2016 when The Women of Algiers sold for $179.4 million at Christie's, while at Sotheby's, his Femme Assis sold for $63.7 million at auction. Chizani, meanwhile, is well beyond that record, having reached a high of $250 million when his painting, The Card Players, sold at auction in 2011. Good Lord. You imagine paying that kind of money for a piece of artwork? That is insane. And what's even more insane is that these people have that kind of money. Leon Black has like $1 billion art collection. With a B, $1 billion. If you can afford to pay for all of that art, and you can afford to have all of that shit hanging around your house or wherever you have it, you can pay your taxes on it as well. These people that use the art world as a vehicle for their money laundering and their tax evasion and all of the other criminal activity that occurs, they need to be put on blast. All of these industries that have flown under the radar for so long because we have been so busy being gaslit by other non-important shit by our media, well, their time needs to come, because how long are we going to let these people get away with this? As we've established previously, money laundering is not a victimless crime. The working poor are the ones who get screwed at the end. That means you and me, folks, all right? When I say working poor, I mean all of us for the most part. Because to them, that's all we are, the working poor. Just a bunch of regular old working stiffs that don't mean shit. And for the longest time, they've gotten away with it. Them and their banker friends and their bought and paid for politicians and their laws that are set up to tilt the game in their favor. But it sure seems to me like things are turning. It sure seems to me like more people are waking up and taking a look at the whole entire situation around them, and it's making them uncomfortable. These people, the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world, the Leon Blacks of the world, the Glenn Dubins of the world, the Les Wexners of the world, these people are truly involved in some of the most heinous BS you could possibly ever imagine. And we see it with Jeffrey Epstein. We see it with his behavior for the past how many decades until he died. And we see it with all of these people who played their part, who facilitated him, who gave him shelter, who helped him hide his funds. And now that Jeffrey Epstein's gone, and he can't face the music, well, guess who's left for us to turn all of our attention to? If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. And to everybody who has donated to the podcast, thank you folks very much. As for me, I'll be back later on with the Daily Drop, and we will pick back up where we left off. All right, everybody, I hope you all enjoy your Saturday, and please be safe.